We're back, sort of.
We are back.
You know what? I'm still in recovery mode. That ride on the little ship to the Dominican sort of kicked my back.
Are you still floating around too, man?
I'm still floating around. And Jamie was on the boat with me. We have a special guest who's just to the, I guess it's to a stage right, and that would be Jamie Moore, big time Jimmy, and we'll get into his life in the music biz. But as we normally do, we go around the horn and if everybody has any shout outs, we do that, and then I do a pick of the week, and then we get into it. And basically, Jamie, the format is we're just four dudes, like we're sitting at the taco stand, having a taco, talking about music, talking about what's going on musically in our life, etc., what we like, what we dig, what we are listening to, etc., etc. And look at that, Steph! Look, Jimmy, big time. You getting a shout out already?
All right, man,
from the Queen herself.
Thanks.
But we are we are unscripted, unrehearsed, and unedited. So don't feel like you have to be a certain way, other than just
100%. We are 100% professional.
Oh yeah, right on. Exactly. Hey, I was just hoping for those tacos he was talking about.
Yeah,
like,
well,
four dudes sitting around a taco shop. Where's the tacos, bro?
Yeah. So anyway, all right.
We got Metal Overkill with us as well.
Yeah, we got a ton of people. Normally we get anywhere from 75 to 100 people that join us
live. Yeah,
we hope it's 1,000 people or 1,000,000. We're not Joe Rogan yet, but you know what? They can't stop us from trying. But anyway, so Scott, you got any shout outs? Anything cooking? And
yeah, I got a few. I got a few new things from the labeling, which is cool, that I worked on. Brother Kane's third album on vinyl, Wishful. They sent me one of each color, which is cool. So yeah, I got to do the reissues on these, worked on all the artwork and obviously the layouts and everything. And the new Van Zant album,
cool.
Johnny and Donnie Van Zant.
That ought to rip.
I just heard that Johnny Van Zant is in critical condition in the hospital, though. So, thoughts, prayers, well wishing, whatever it is that you do, I'm sure he would appreciate it. So I don't know what's going on. that's all I heard and I read. So
and Jamie, in case you don't know, Scott has a label called No Life Till Metal.
Okay.
They've done a ton of reissues, including Nevermore, Flotsam and Jetsam, Sacred Reich, and even Brother Kane, Fate's Warning. They got some other stuff cooking in the
rock and roll.
So, he's a good guy to know.
Oh yeah, horns up to you, bro.
Thanks. The Starwood's shipping now, so if anybody's interested in the Lizzie Borden Starwood album, that's out. This is the Lizzie Borden album nobody knows about because they changed their name after the guitar player died. Back in what year did this thing come out? Like 2004. So I think he died in 2001, 2002. The original guitar player. They decided they were going to change their name to Starwood, and they released this one album, and then nobody knew who it was because everybody was expecting Lizzie Borden. So they changed their name back to Lizzie Borden after this and have been releasing albums under that name ever since. But there was this one album recorded under the name Starwood, but it basically is just Lizzie Borden under a different name. And then I got this one too, which I didn't work on, but I'm looking forward to checking it out. But the new Mark Farner album, one of the labels I work for is distributing them and selling them, so they sent me a copy to check out. So big Grand Funk fan, and I also love Mark Farner's solo album, so I'm looking forward to checking it out.
Yeah. Honestly, Grand Funk with Deep Purple, Grand Funk, and Black Sabbath, they were the three that kind of got me into music. And man, I love Grand Funk, and Farner was an underrated vocalist and guitar player, I think. But
it's funny though, they were huge in the 70s, and now most people don't even know who they are.
They don't even know who they are. But
man, like fifth grade, when I don't know, I had to probably be like 1983 or something. If you had Foreigner 4 album and Journey, you were like heavy metal in my category back in those days.
Yeah,
back in those days, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Foreigner 4 was great.
Yeah, it's a different world anymore. I mean, because like Aerosmith and Deep Purple and that was heavy metal. Ted Nugent was heavy metal, and
yes,
it's not even the case as we saw on the boat. But what about you, Steve-O? You got anything?
Nothing this week.
Nothing.
Actually saw an argument on a Facebook page by a bunch of guys claiming that Iron Maiden and Judas Priest are not heavy metal; they're just classic rock.
All right. How old were the people that said that?
No idea, but I'm assuming they're pretty young.
That's what I'm going with.
Probably 11.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm going with too.
The funny thing I've been noticed in the last couple of years is when I read music articles from even big name magazines, you can tell that the person writing it has no idea about the history of heavy metal. That the influences they're talking about are wrong, and it's the way they describe some of the older metal. You can tell they don't know what they're talking about. It's getting kind of ridiculous now.
It's awfully strange to talk to somebody that has no clue as to some of the bands that we know from even 25 or 30 years ago, and they've never even heard of them. So
yeah, I remember. I just saw one
right there. You see that amplifier head right there? That's not really an amplifier head. That is called. See, it says heavy metal on it. It is a 4-disc compilation of heavy metal. And it's got everything from Led Zeppelin to Lizzie Borden on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No metalcore.
No,
there was an article
White on that.
There was an article a couple months ago where they were talking about butt rock and what's butt rock, and they were saying it's bands that put out music copying other people that didn't add nothing to the genre. And they put the worst of the bands was Motley Crue, and I was like, you could not like Motley Crue, but they created the 80s. You know what I mean? Most of those bands in the 80s were directly copying Motley Crue. So to say that they didn't do anything or they didn't add anything to metal is pretty crazy.
I have the greatest story about Motley Crue's Shout at the Devil album. My dad took me to the mall to get it. And of course I already had Too Fast for Love. So I was going to get Shout at the Devil. Pick up the album, just like not a tape, not a CD, freaking album. And I'm showing my dad, and he turned, he looks at the front, and of course he ain't cool with it saying Shout at the Devil. He flips it over on the back. First words out of his mouth, man, those 4 chicks are pretty hot.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, dude, those are not chicks, man. Those are men. And he was like, oh, well.
There's one band that I just found out like a couple years ago, the lead singer was a guy. And I can't remember what band it is. It'll come to me while we're talking. But you see the picture and the voice, you would swear it's a woman. And I think it was Scott that told me it was a guy.
Was it Nitro or Tiger Tails?
No, it's not far off from that. Was it Scarlet? Something Scarlet?
You got me on that one, man. Hey, all those bands in the 80s that were glam metal, and I ain't going to say I didn't like them because I did, but man, they were a lot of mascara wearing hot looking dudes that could have been chicks.
Yeah, and a lot of
and they got chicks.
A lot of them can play their instruments too.
The more eyeliner and O-rings you had on the arm, and as much shit as you had in your hair to stand your hair up, man, you were hot. All the chicks wanted you then.
Yeah, very strange.
That was the weird 80s.
Well, before we get completely off the rails, normally what we do is I do a pick of the week. And I still haven't worked out my, maybe by episode 250 in a couple of weeks, I will have worked out the Carcass John's pick of the week. So I usually pick a rock and roll one, and then something that every metalhead should have in their collection, whether it's rock and roll or metal. So this week, we went over our favorite live albums a few weeks ago, and Deep Purple, Made in Japan. I'm sorry, this is top 3 live albums of all time. And
yes, it is.
And if this ever got you into heavy metal, this didn't get you into heavy metal, then I think there's something wrong. But man, I've been spinning this thing on the regular, and I can't get enough of it. It still holds up after 50 years? Because this thing came out in 72 or 3. So this album's 50 years old, and it's ridiculously good still.
It would be in my top 10, no doubt, for live albums.
So Deep Purple, Made in Japan. And any of those Mark II, Mark III era Deep Purple records would be great.
Before you do the next one, hang on a second, though. I forgot something. So we did that live albums thing, and I showed the Frank Marino Real Live album.
Sure.
And somebody mentioned that, oh, man, Volume 2 is just as good. I'm like, what? Wait a minute. There's a Volume 2?
Yeah, they're both great, yeah.
Yeah, so it might have been you. So I, of course, had to immediately go out and find a copy, and I did. So
wait, there is a Volume 2?
Yeah,
there is
a Volume 2 store day.
Oh, man.
Store day.
Just when I thought I was going to save some budget.
Uh-oh, we lost.
We lost John.
We lost John. He'll be back in a second. But yeah, I was surprised, and it wasn't that expensive either. So where'd you go, John? Come back. He was in the middle of his
while
spiel.
either way, I got a quick pick of the week too. I haven't done one of these.
Go ahead.
But, have you guys checked this out? 24K Joy.
I'm gonna blow it up. Hang on. Let me see you. Ah,
There
we go.
Scott.
I didn't do anything.
This is 24K Joy. It's Band of Joy. It's two of the guys from Band of Joy from the 70s. They did some hard rock stuff in the early 80s, and this is like hard rock mixed with punk. It was playing in the record store when I went there a couple weeks ago, and I ended up buying it off the turntable. Really killer mix of late 70s punk with some kind of like a new wave of British heavy metal thing going on.
Cool. Yeah, John, sorry, we did another one without you since you were gone.
Yeah, I thought you were going to disparage my pick, but Municipal Waste, Slime and Punishment. I think this one kind of slides under the, speaking of slime, kind of slides under the radar a little bit because the one prior to this one, nobody really liked it. And I really dug. This is kind of a shift back to their mid-range roots, but I think every metalhead needs this thing. This thing really rips. It's a good crossover record. There's no filler. It's all killer stuff. And Breathe the Grease, of course, that's a killer video. But anyway, so Municipal Waste is my metal pick of the week, and Deep Purple Made in Japan is my, of course, rock pick of the week. And anytime you listen to Ozric Tentacles, Jamie, you're in our wheelhouse because they are the greatest band ever. But
I just bought this one yesterday, John. This is the last one that I needed.
Hazardous, yeah, that's a great one.
Hey, if you got, we lost John again.
Yep, it's not me. It's something on his end. Our end, I'm having no issues. I got full signal and everything. So anyhow, but yeah, I picked this. I picked the. I've been buying up the Ozric Tentacles as I find them for good prices. Got this one really cheap on eBay, so still sealed. So anyhow,
I will send you. Remind me after the show. I'll send you the. I'll have to never. We'll talk after the show.
You're back with us, John.
I don't know what's going on, John. It's nothing on our end because I'm not seeing anything here. But
okay, well,
I don't know if the internet's kicking you out or what it is. But
I don't know what the deal is. I'm going to shrink my page a little bit here and see if that helps.
John, you do know your boys Municipal Waste who launched us off on the boat on Headbangers Boat 1 last year, right?
Oh, that's right. I did remember.
That's who when we launched off. That was who rocked the Casbah was.
I was pretty satisfied with Exodus. As you know,
me too.
Jamie was on the boat with us on the Headbangers Boat Cruise 2, and man, I don't think anything's going to touch that lineup though. With Carcass, Exodus, Frozen Soul, I mean, it was redonkulous. But,
they better announce 6 more hard hitters, or they ain't going on this next one.
Yeah, the next one is a little bit weak, but so anyway, so Jamie and I have been talking about this, that, and the other, including a project that he did way back in what was that
97, I believe, when I got back to Texas from Las Vegas.
And I've heard Jamie sing in various bands, Demonseed, Prophecy, some others. And he had a project called Womb Wrecker that was wrecked by COVID, pretty much. And COVID wrecked a lot of things. But I'd never heard him quite sound like I did on that one record. So anyway, start off by talking about basically your background in music, what your influences were, and then how that particular project came about, because it's way different than what your normal project is.
Which one are you talking about? Irreverance?
The Irreverance, yeah.
Okay. Well, so I mean, obviously, I'm old, like most everybody else involved here. We're older dudes, so I got started in the '80s when heavy metal ruled the world, and we all started like garage bands. I don't know if you guys are familiar. I don't know. You probably aren't from Fort Worth, but there's a little school in Saginaw, Texas called Boswell High School. And I'm not kidding you. There's been so many people come out of Boswell High School that are in bands. It's ridiculous. I mean, it ain't all going to be heavy metal bands, but there's some pretty big players that came out of a cow pasture high school in Saginaw, Texas. But that was when when music ruled the world and MTV really was music videos, and that's what we all grew up on. And instead of playing video games, we all played guitars or drums or bass or sing or whichever you did. And of course, I grew up in Fort Worth, the home of the mighty Pantera, and I met Pantera in 1985. I was got to go see them at Six Flags over Texas. They played the outdoor amphitheater, and I got to say that experience probably molded the rest of my life, because me and two of my homeboys snuck back to the back, well, not backstage, but snuck back while they were warming up, getting set up for the day, and Vinny and Rex and Daryl and Terry were all cool because this was pre-Phil. They were all as nice as could be, as humble as they could be. And then we watched the show. We were front row Joe, and I swear to God that, with beyond a shadow of a doubt, that was the game changer for me, was watching Pantera in 1985. I played football, but I wanted to be in a band. If I wasn't playing football, I wanted to be in a band. So that's just how it went. And henceforward, I moved to Las Vegas in the early 90s to play football at UNLV. That didn't pan out, but I met a whole bunch of guys in Las Vegas, Mitch Harris from Napalm Death being one of them, because all my friends in Vegas are in a band called Lethal Injection. My drummer friend from Lethal Injection was actually the drummer in Righteous Pigs. You guys heard of Righteous Pigs?
Yep.
You see Phil Anselmo wearing Righteous Pig shirts all the time. I know Caper. I know all those guys. It's, again, there's another whole nother scene out there in Las Vegas. It's nothing like what we have in Dallas, but there's a whole nother scene of dudes out there. I got to see my friends in Lethal Injection actually open up in 90 for Pantera on the Cowboys from Hell tour. And again, game changer. I was only 20 years old, and here my friends are opening up for my other friends from Texas. Again, made me just want to be in a band and be on stage, and that's when the whole ball started. Of really trying to start a real band, not just some kind of garage band. And when I got back from Vegas to here is when I met up with those cats in Irreverance, and we started that band. And when I went for tryouts, of course, I didn't know any of their original music, so you always got to try to find common ground in something, and that common ground a lot of times in heavy metal is going to be a Slayer song. So we picked Slayer War Ensemble, and I did it. You know, I'm a death metal singer, so I did it death metal style. And hell, we didn't make it 30 seconds into the song, and they stopped and they go, "You're hired." And I was like, "All right, cool, man." So we took off from there. And I don't know, John, what would you consider Irreverence? More of a black metal, death metal-ish?
Yeah, it's like a black and thrash. I think death metal is, and this is my opinion. You can fight me in the parking lot. I don't care. I think death metal spawned from thrash, and so there's a ton of elements in the early, especially the early death metal stuff. And so, but I would say that it had a little blackened tinge to it. There were bands in Texas that were kind of trying to do that. Crucifix was one of them. They're from Fort Worth, I think. Crucifix with the C, not the Crucifix with the K. That was a thrash band later. There were a couple other bands, Hell Preacher and so forth. They were trying to do kind of a blackened version of death metal, and I think the Irreverence that's more of what you're. That's the way I would classify that. It's like a blackened thrash death metal.
Those guitar players in that band were really into Carcass, Death, Opeth, even Absu. So if that gives you any like genre of what the guitar players are into, because I've always just been like straight Cannibal Corpse, Suffocation, Dying Fetus, Morbid Angel. I'm just like the OG straight brutal guttural death metal, and those guys I consider more Carcass and Death and all that, and Opeth I consider that more on the technical side of death metal, not so much straightforward in your face. So that's where those guitar players came from, was that we played a few death songs, and an Opeth song I think was like 11 minutes long, and it was like, wow.
That's when Opeth was more black or more death black metal, kind of that same kind of. They weren't really black metal per se, but they had some black metal elements like Blackwater Park and Domination, and some of those Orchid, some of those middle once, but then of course then they completely turned the genre upside down and became Deep Purple playing heavy jazz fusion.
Well, what's funny though, I remember everybody was shocked when they started going more prog, but I was like, you can't have been listening to them, because from day one they had those prog elements. They were still pretty heavy death metal, but they had those prog elements from day one. They were always kind of a technical band.
Yes, agree with that 100%.
So
yeah. So that was
just,
like 97 era, John, was when that band started. And I did that band like 97 to early 2000 and switched over from that. I actually was in Irreverance and Demonseed at the same time at one point in time. And then I went full-blown Demonseed for 15 years. That's what I'm known mostly for, is Demonseed. If anybody sees me in the business or anywhere, mostly they all know me from Demonseed. I did a lot of cool stuff as the singer for Demonseed, and Demonseed's still going, still support them, still 100%. All my homeboys. I just haven't been in the band since 2015, and I feel like they took it to a whole nother level from where I was at.
So is that Carlos Castillo? That was his baby?
Yes, it's always been his.
It's always been his. Well,
yeah, he brought it from Michigan. I'm pretty sure he started it in Michigan. He got the name from Slayer song. So
yeah. Well, they still rip it up, and I guess if there's any able-bodied replacement for you, Chase Nunn he's done pretty well with them. I like that the newer version just as well. But so what led you away from that? Did you get busy? You got life?
Man, I had a career change, and I moved 3 hours west of Fort Worth, so I was living in a town called Throckmorton, and for me to come to band practice was like literally a 4-hour one-way drive. And I don't want to talk too much crap, but me and one of the members of the band didn't get along too well, and it was easier for me just to bow out at that time. So
gotcha. Well, I don't want to scratch an old wound, but anyway, but you've had other musical opportunities after Demonseed, right?
Oh yeah, me and James Parks are always. He's always trying to get me to be in Prophecy, and I've done it a couple times. It just seems like the planets never align when it comes time to do it, and I'll be in it for a couple months, and something will happen, life changing, that I have to bow out, and just stuff happens, and you got to do what you got to do again.
Sure.
Music is all of our passion. If you're a real musician and you talk to musicians, you'll find that all of us are just normal dudes. Everybody's got the same life. Everybody's got the same problems at home. We all got to work a real job per se, especially in the real metal business. If you're not just a Lamb of God or somebody, that's been touring for a long time, you're not going to have money to be able to not tour all the time. And if you'll notice, everybody tours all the time because they got bills to pay.
Right.
It's not necessarily touring because you want to go play shows to everybody. You do want to do that because how cool is it for the world and to see your music and to come pay you for your music and bang their head to your music and mosh to your music? There's nothing cooler than that. That's what we do it for. But again, at the end of the day, most guys have real jobs. We all got to go home and go back to work, and that was one of the big things with Demonseed, that we had real offers to go on real tours, but me and Carlos both worked and had families, and both of us said to each other in private, had deep conversations about, dude, if we go do this, man, we're going to be leaving our families, leaving our kids, leaving our real jobs that we make good money at, and go on the road. And when you're on the road, it's us paying, we are the job. If something happens, it's on you. So we had some real cool opportunities with Demonseed. We just never got to jump on top of it. But I will tell you, all the cool things that I got to do with Demonseed were just beyond. I mean, that's still to this day, when somebody brings it up, or if you want to go look at YouTube video, you type in Jamie Demonseed, Lamb of God on the same line on YouTube, and you'll see me in front of 15,000 people in Oklahoma City singing the most death metal version of Black Label from Lamb of God that you've ever heard. Like the PA guy, after we played, because it was the last song of the Rockstar Mayhem tour, and Rob Zombie was coming on after that. the PA guy, after we walked off stage, he came backstage and he goes, "Hey, if y'all ever plan on doing that again, please let me know, because you almost smoked a $1 billion PA system." Because John, you know how loud I am. So
Oh yeah.
if you watch that video, watch, because there's a mic by the monitor that I grabbed because I thought it was mine, and I go to grab and it ain't live at all. So Randy just hands me his. So I'm using Randy's live mic that's set for Randy Blythe. Man, when I started belting out notes, I'm sure that PA guy's bunghole cringed, because I don't hardly need any gain at all ever.
No.
You can you can turn gain on like half for me, and that's like half of one. So
that was PG-13 right there, boy. That was a good one. Bunghole cringe.
Yeah, that's why I did it, man. That's why I said that. That's why I said it like that.
Well, I remember when you did that show with Prophecy at the Haltom, that the sound guy was going nuts.
Yep.
He had that iPad on his forearm, and he was tapping away trying to.
Yeah, he was trying to get that gain down, man. Get that gain down. But yeah, that's so again, a cool moment of being in Demonseed and getting to be on stage with Lamb of God, getting to sing "Becoming" with Damage Plan at the Ridgely Theater. That story's in one of its own. Pat Lackman, who was the singer for Damage Plan, comes up to me before the show and he goes, "Hey man, we're good homies." He says, "You know the lyrics to Becoming?" I said, "Man, I know them about as well as anybody knows them from just singing them in the car and stuff." And he goes, "Well, cool. Guess what? You're helping me tonight." I'm like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "Yeah, they just put it on me. We're playing that tonight. And I'm not comfortable with the lyrics, so you got to help." So I got to get up and sing again, death metal version. Because if I get on stage with you, you're not getting clean vocals. You're getting Demonseed vocals. You're getting death metal vocals. So I got to do Becoming death metal style with Damage Plan, and what a treat that was.
So okay. So when we're on the boat,
Yeah.
I mean, Jamie's not Jamie Moore. Jamie's big time Jimmy, and he knows everybody, and everybody knows him. And I noticed that you had a connection to Exodus too.
Yeah. Okay. So
Talk about
04. 04. I'm in again Demonseed, and we are supposed to be playing with Exodus in Dallas. I'm still in Las Vegas because I've been in town all weekend with Damage Plan, hanging out with them all weekend. Me and Dime have been up to some major debauchery. Have you ever heard that song "Roach Class" that Dime has? Okay, well, he's calling me at 4 a.m. in the morning while I'm with a chick and having some fun, and he's bugging me and, "Hey man, I got these lyrics. Can you help me write this song?" And it's Roach Class. So we're writing Roach Class at 4 a.m. in the morning. I'm supposed to be back in Dallas to play at Trees with Exodus, and he's telling me, "No, dude, don't go, man. Just stay, hang out with us. You can just ride home on the bus." I said, "Dime, how pissed would you be if I called you and told you that I was hanging out with Exodus and that I couldn't be to play with Damage Plan tonight?" And he goes, "Yeah, Twister, you're right about that. You probably ought to go." So, and the Jimmy big time thing, the name Jimmy came up again. Another Dime backstory. We were hanging out with David Allen Coe, and Dime introduced me to David Allen Coe, and he said Jamie, and David Allen Coe's old deaf ass couldn't hear, and I got Jimmy, and he thought when he said one time, "That's my boy Jamie," and David Allen goes, "How you doing, Jimmy?" And Dime just Jimmy. So Jimmy stuck. That's how I ended up with Jimmy, was because of David Allen Coe. So that's where the whole Jimmy thing comes in, and it's much easier to say Jimmy than it is Jamie in my book. So I go with that half the time. So, but the Exodus deal again, I made it back from Las Vegas to Dallas and literally walked in the door, and we were going on with an opening for Exodus. And when we got done, I met Zetro that night. And of course, I told him what a fan of Exodus I'd always been, and that Bonded by Blood was one of the albums hanging on my wall when my dad destroyed my room when he thought I was a devil worshiper. And tore everything off the wall. So I'm telling him about Bonded by Blood hitting the floor, and he's laughing about it. And he watches us play. And when we get done, he comes up and he said, "Man, dude, you're heavy, man." I'm like, "Thank you." He says, "You know any of the lyrics from any of our songs?" I said, "Hell yeah, I know some." He goes, "What's your favorite one?" I said, "Piranha." And he goes, "Man, you want to perform it with us tonight?" And I was like, "Ask not again, sir." "Yes, I do." So I got to sing Piranha with Exodus at Trees, and that was 04, I believe that was the year that went down.
Did you see Exodus perform with Max? And
Yes. I
were
have.
you in the room? I couldn't remember.
Yes,
if you
I
were.
recorded.
Oh, that's right.
I recorded
yeah,
the video. I recorded that video.
that's right.
I sent it to Zetro yesterday. Me and Zetro were real tight homies. Ever since that night in 04, we've talked to each other for sure yearly, monthly since then. Always we've maintained friendship, because I'm gonna tell you something about Zetro. Zetro is a union carpenter. There were a time when Zetro had to go and take care of his family and be a union carpenter, hence the other singer.
Yeah, I've known like Phil Demmel. He's another one from that Bay Area scene from Violence, and despite their perceived success, he was still swinging a hammer until he got that gig with Machine Head, and they just toured, and then he was able to pay the bills with what he was making off the music. But I know it's a tough road to hoe, man, for any musician, but let alone a heavy metal one, because you have to strike it just right, and like you said, be one of the upper tier elite.
When I first met them boys in Lamb of God, who I met through Hank 3, and that's a whole nother story with me and Hank 3. They all had jobs. Randy was a chef, and Chris Adler used to ride his 10-speed from home to band practice for, I want to say almost all the way through Ashes of the Wake. So there again, you think about the heavy metal heroes we had that we talked about earlier, such as Priest and Maiden and those good Purple and all those guys. Those guys were multi-money making rock stars. They got to experience real money of the 70s and 80s when there really was money floating around. It's not like that now. I mean, there is still money in the game, don't get me wrong, but not like there was back then. In the respect of it back then too.
Well, plus back then you could name just about every real famous band on two hands. I mean, now the market is just flooded with great bands. I mean, we saw one on Saturday. The Blood Incantation guys. Those dudes have been touring since 2001, 2004, something like that.
Right.
And they're in a ton of, and they run a bookstore, for crying out loud, when there's to keep themselves on the road. So it's wild that the perceived success that they have isn't anything, like you said, like back in the day.
Yes.
I mean, I know.
Look at Henry. How many bands is he in right now? 7, and still has to have the record store.
Vasquez.
Yes.
There you go. I mean, he's in Pentagram. He's in.
And those are. I mean, he's
Vitus.
in big bands.
Yeah, those are not. Yeah, those are not no scrum bands, man. Those are for sure legit bands, beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
But that, again, guys, that's just the status of the music business nowadays.
Yep.
So,
a couple things before we move on. First of all, Brian McFadden said David Al Cole stole beer right out of his hand at one of the shows. He was right up front.
That sounds about right.
I don't doubt that.
And hails to Jeffrey Waters, who's watching right now. And yes, that is my brother.
And so when I met Hank 3, let me cut a little bit on Hank 3. So when I met Hank 3 is actually who turned me on to Lamb of God in like 90 or maybe 99, 2000. That's a great album. I warm up to. So you guys are going to dig on this. I actually do warm up before I sing. I have to. I get about 20-25 minutes in, and it's all country, and it's usually Hank 3 because it makes me sing through my nose and get real nasally and do some of that yodeling stuff, and it really gets me warmed up. And Hank 3 warms up to death metal, so go figure on that one.
I remember.
He's been in like 5 death metal bands, so I mean, he's been around.
I remember him playing at the Rail when Buster still owned it, when Buster O'Keefe still owned it, and he played as a solo artist, but he also played with Arson Anthem.
Yes,
Phil Anselmo, Hank playing drums.
Yeah, he plays drums on that. I actually went to. My friend Kyle Turley, who was an ex-NFL player, who's actually a musician. I flew to New Orleans and I played guitar for Turley, and we were opening up for Arson Anthem and War Beast. It was Kyle Turley, War Beast, and Arson Anthem on the same show in New Orleans. So,
well, and Hank 3 used to do a show where he would do his country for the first set.
yes.
Second set would be his rockabilly band, and then the third set would be Ass Jack, which was
kind
of a metal band, you know.
Again, type in Jamie Demonseed Ass Jack in the search bar on YouTube, and you will see me singing on stage with Ass Jack. So, man, I got to do a lot of cool stuff, like I said, throughout my years, and most of it was all when I was involved with Demonseed. Like John was mentioning, we tried to do this band Womb Wrecker, which was a whole bunch of really all-star players from DFW that were great musicians in all different bands, and we wrote one song, released one song, and immediately Las Vegas Death Fest hit us up. We're trying to give us a 10 o'clock slot on a Saturday night with one song. That's all we had in the can. So we started writing, and we had a couple songs down that were even way heavier than the one that we wrote. And the one we did put out, if you go in the comment section, there's a bunch of people that are like, what is this, Infinite Annihilator? So it's heavy. There's actually 2 of us singing on it. There's 5 people in the band, and 4 of us were doing vocals. You know, you guys, y'all know who Ernie is from Chemicost?
Mm-hmm.
Ernie Jaramillo from Chemicost. He also does a Slayer cover band called Postmortem.
Ernie replaced me as the bass player and singer in Irreverance. He was the bass player in Irreverance, and when I left, he took over vocals in Irreverance. Ernie was the bass player with me in Demonseed, so Ernie was on board with me in Womb Wrecker. So we all sang. So if you guys get a chance to check that out, you'll see 4 different vocalists singing on this.
Too?
Yes. Wes did vocals too. Wes was kind of the instigator of all this. When I went over and did my last Demonseed EP that I recorded with Demonseed in 2015, Wes was the engineer on that. And when I went over and knocked the dust out of his air conditioner vents in his house, he was like, dude, I have never recorded anybody that's as loud as you. And we hit it off real. We were buddies, but after that we hit it off real. You know, when you go in the studio and you spend hours and hours sitting there with somebody, you get pretty deep in conversation on life. And
Primordius, his band, really, I mean, they kind of shot to the top of the death metal heap here in town.
For beyond a shadow of a hell, they went to Europe.
Yeah, they were awesome, and then they were gone, and I'm just like, wait, no.
Yeah, well, Wes, again, everybody has things that happen, and he had some family stuff that happened, and he had to move on. And man, that Womb Wrecker was going to be brutal. It really was, especially with me and Wes. It was kind of a despised icon, go back and forth on the vocal deal. And Wes is always the guttural, and I got that high black metal shrill thing that I can do along with the guttural. So, and I can carry a note for a week. So I was the one that helped on that end. And then we had parts where Ernie sang on there, and Ernie's got a different voice too. So it was real cool, man.
I got a question for you.
Yes,
so I pretty much ask this to every guest. You've seen the movie. This is Spinal Tap, I'm assuming, right?
Oh, of course.
You can't be in a band and not have seen that movie. So every band's got Spinal Tap moments. Share a Spinal Tap moment where just things went completely wrong or anything.
Almost any time, either in Irreverance or Demonseed, somehow we might get booked with Little Green Men or some band that we had no business playing with whatsoever, and there could be 100 of their fans standing in the room, and when we go on, within 30 seconds the room clears, empty.
Yep.
Empty.
Been there and done that.
And if you're really a player, you don't care if you're playing to one person or a million people. You go put on a show no matter what.
Exactly.
That's what you practice for, man. And without all your people, you're just 4 or 5 dudes in a band room that jam. That's all you are. So for all your people, man, that's why Dimebag always told me, man, you make your fans feel like they're the biggest fans in the world. So anybody, my people that are out watching right now, listening right now, I love you all. Thank you all for always supporting everything I've done. I appreciate you beyond words. I mean, again, without you guys, we're just dudes in a jam room that just jam. That's all there is to it. Hell, without them, without our people watching right now, we're just 4 dudes sitting here BSing about music, man.
Yeah.
Yep. And we played. I played a show one time, and I played in a thrash band for 20 years. And we played a festival one time, and our guitar player booked most of our shows. And he said, "You guys realize that we're a thrash band? Yeah. We know. We want all kinds of music at our festival." They're like, so we get there to this festival out in the middle of this park, people everywhere, all these families, little kids sitting on blankets, and they have some. We get us behind the stage, and the band right before us is some acoustic, like I don't know, church praise and worship style band. And nothing wrong with that, but it's just like, so then they clear their stuff out and we start rolling up our equipment. We got the full stacks of the 4x4 cabinets and everything, and we get up there, we set it all up, and we start playing. And we had a thing where we started off our shows with where we all just stood still and we played this little riff, and then as the beat came in, we all simultaneously did the windmills. Man, by the time we hit those windmills, I swear everybody in that park moved back like 100 yards. Just most of them scattered.
Yeah, they didn't want any part of that.
Nope. Yeah, there was. I've got. Yeah, there's so many Spinal Tap stories. They're so much fun now. They weren't fun back then, but
yes.
But the best show that we did, it turned out that it was a straight edge show, and we didn't know that, and we were smoking as we walked on stage.
Oh Lord!
And stuff, and they started throwing shit at us, and, and that was a good night. I mean, we still did the set, but it was rough. Straight edge kids. We're smoking joints, smoking cigarettes.
we played in Victoria, Texas, in Demonseed one time, and they were having electrical issues before we ever went on. Remember the band Volume Knob, John?
Yeah.
All right, we played with Volume Knob, and so right before we go on again, electrical issues. I get on stage, we start the song. We ain't a song in, and I don't know what happened, man, but that microphone electrocuted me so bad. I threw that damn thing as far as I could throw it, and I was like, unless somebody else is going to pick that thing up and tell me it ain't going to shock you, I ain't touching that microphone again. So, again, another Spinal Tap moment right on stage, getting electrocuted.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of. They're always fun. We played a show one time in Colorado. I can't remember where it was. Some little club, and they had all. It was a nice setup. They had all these nice lights. They had a big, big PA system. We start playing. We're in the middle of our first song, and all of a sudden the electric goes out. Boom! You can't exactly keep playing in a metal band when you have no electric, right? So you had to stop. So we're like, "What's up?" Lights all go out. Oh, it's just an electrical issue. We'll take care of it. Give us a second. They get the electric back on. Lights go back on. So we go back into the song and. I mean, we're not even 3/4 of the way through the same song. Lights, everything goes off again. What the heck, man? They finally we did get to 2 songs and it keeps doing that. If it was the lighting, they just didn't enough power to do all that lighting. Like, leave the damn lights. I get on the microphone. Turn the lights off and just turn the lights on the inside the building on. We got through the whole rest of the show with the house lights on. Yeah, it's right.
So, hey, on that note, I played with Demonseed opened for Deicide one time in Dallas at Trees. We got through our set, but as thunderstorm rolled in, it started doing that piss and rain like it does in Texas sometimes. Deicide got 3 songs in, and the power started going on and off. And if you guys know anything about Glenn Bitten, he is not one of them dudes. So he gets mad about everything. I got to see the most pissed off 5 songs from Deicide because they stopped after the 5th song, but it was the 5 most pissed off Deicide songs. And when you hear the pissed off Glenn Benton, man, because that dude's got some vocals, man. But when you get him pissed off, it was 5 of the heaviest pissed off Deicide songs I ever saw.
I saw Danzig like that just recently. I saw Danzig this last time coming through town, and his mic kept going out while he was singing. Well, I thought he was about to jump into the crowd and beat the shit out of that sound guy.
Was this on the Behemoth tour?
Yeah.
Okay, that was a great show, man. As far as I'm concerned, Behemoth stole the show, but I leaned on that death metal side of this thing. But man, what a show Behemoth puts on! I'd love to see them on the boat, John.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. If they say Behemoth, Dying Fetus, Cannibal Corpse, Uada, and Suffocation are going to be on this boat, I can't book my ticket fast enough.
Right. But if I have to wade through Clutch 3 times and whatever else they got, as much as I mean, I love Obituary, but I'm not going to pay that kind of money to see Obituary.
Well, that's who you're going to see because I mean, it's
and maybe Crowbar, but no offense to any of the other bands, but
I love Fear Factory. Me and Dino are homies. I got to sing with Divine Heresy, so there's another one. Man, I wish I had video and audio of all these times that I got. There you go. Hey, OG, man. I got to see Brujeria live in LA in like 92. We drove all the way from Vegas to LA because, again, I was friends with Dino, and he told me, hey, you might ought to make it to the Fear Factory show at the Whiskey because there's a special treat going on afterwards, and that special treat was Brujeria playing live. They only played twice live like that. One was in a backyard and one was at the Whiskey after Fear Factory.
Who was really in that band?
I haven't seen them in a long time, but man, in the 90s, they were great live.
You haven't seen them? You haven't seen them with Milo yet?
No.
Well, let me tell you something about Milo. I ain't gonna surprise me when Dino decides to retire from Fear Factory and he turns it over to Milo because Milo can play the guitar, the bass, the drums, and the vocals for every song from Fear Factory.
Yeah, who's the kid from Raven? Scott. He was playing for Fear Factory for a while too. The drummer from Raven.
Yeah, he was playing with them for a long time.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, I think
is that who's still with him?
No, because Pete Weber from Havoc was with them for a while, and I thought that Dave had picked up basically a new band because Reese was with Machine Head for a while, but then I don't know what's going on with.
He's doing a couple. I know he's doing Raven. He's doing a band with Ellefson.
Is it Mike Heller?
Yeah, Mike Heller. That's his name.
Yeah, I'm again. Dino's been one of my homies for a long time, so I'm really, really happy for Dino that he's out getting to do Fear Factory again. And I mean, we're going to see some new Fear Factory. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, we're going to hear and see some new Fear Factory. But again, for Dino to get to move on and continue that hit, that's Dino's band. So
yeah, that was a bumpy road for that band for a while.
Well, again, John,
they were an opening act for a long. I mean, I saw them for the first album. They were an opening act. I saw them for Demanufacture when that came out. They were still opening. They were opening for what was it? It was Korn. They were the opening band, and then Korn was brand new at the time. And then Flops, and then Megadeth.
Weren't they on like one of the very first Ozfests too? And they
were. So I went to the very first Ozfest in Phoenix. That was the first one ever.
And they were early in the day. Yes.
Yeah. I've got it over here somewhere. They did the deluxe edition of Demanufacture, and it's got the live set from that Ozfest. Yeah, that was a great show. Cool. That was like 2 or 3 weeks before Max left Sepultura. So it was one of the last times he played with them. That was a great show.
I got to tell Max to his face, not till we got off the boat, because I didn't see Max anywhere except when we were getting off the ship. I got to tell him to his face what an icon that he is to me. Because Max Cavalera in 1988, when I walked record store, John, over on Collins Street in Arlington, not
CD Warehouse?
Maybe. It was upstairs on the second floor?
Yes.
Okay, CD Warehouse. I walked in there in 1988, and Beneath the Remains was playing, and I was a total Pantera, Slayer, Metallica guy, and I heard Beneath the Remains, and I couldn't get to the guy to tell me the band fast enough. I was like, dude, who is this? This is wonderful. He was like, oh, this is Sepultura, and I was like, I got to have this, and I wore that cassette out in my truck, and I'm telling you right now, I got the Sepultura Tribal S tattooed on me, and I've been a Max Cavalera fan my entire life. I play guitar too, but I'm way more of a Max Cavalera player. You could go ahead and cut the bottom 2 strings off my guitar, and I'm cool with that. I'm like him.
It cracks me up that he still does that.
Well, I mean, when you know your role playing that guitar, you don't need them bottom 2. I can tell you right now, me and Max make hell of good bass players. Because we are already used to 4 strings, so don't ever let no guitar players. They always try to tell you they can't play bass. Trust me, they can. They just don't want to. Dude, we'd have a hell of a lot more badass bass players if more of them would step up and quit thinking that they are guitar players. Because there's guitar players, and then there's guitar players.
Yeah.
Well, Max was smart too. He always, and he said it. He was like Mustaine. He always hired somebody that was better than him to be on stage with him.
Right.
So no matter what band he's been in, they've always been killer.
Hell, Andreas is amazing.
Hey, Jamie, Mean Metal Mike wants to know if you're a Judas Priest fan and how did you originally discover Judas Priest?
About 1981 in Haltom City, hanging out with the Haltom City crew, and they were a bunch of thugs, and they turned me on to Priest, and I loved them ever since, man.
How about you, Carcass? When did you discover Priest?
Well, I bought. Gosh, I probably because I saw him live at the Salt Palace in Salt Lake City, Utah, in 1981, and I remember having to pay $8 for a ticket, and I thought, gosh, man, the prices are going through the roof.
You were mad,
but they were so. They were exactly what I was looking for, because I kind of came into the metal scene kind of from the punk side of things. I mean, I was huge into the Sex Pistols and Verruchers and Disrupt and stuff like that. And but then I was always looking for something fast and heavy. And then Priest was it, man. Stained Class. And then I sort of backtracked from Stained Class back to, the beginning. And then I think they put out some suspicious records, but for the most part, they are. I mean, they're it, man. I saw someone asking, who's more heavy metal, Priest or Iron Maiden? And Priest was doing it before Iron Maiden, so I got to go with Maiden. Or I mean, I've got to go with Priest. I mean, Priest was doing it before Iron Maiden, and not that Iron Maiden is not as important, but I can remember it would have been the fall or winter of '81, and watching them at the Salt Palace in Salt Lake City, and I was just blown away.
Well, you don't have Maiden without Priest.
Right.
That galloping guitar that they're famous for, Priest started that in like 76, 77,
Yep.
I even like Rockarola because it
Oh, I love that.
I was into that more of a psychedelic thing. Like the first two UFOs, everyone complains about those. I don't complain about them. They're killer.
I love the UFOs too. Yeah,
stoner, bluesy, psychedelic. The first Scorpions, to me, bar none, is a great record and might be one of my favorite. Lonesome Crow, but doesn't mean that I don't like their other stuff, because it was just as important. But I feel the same way about Priest. Sad Wings of Destiny. I mean, come on, nobody was doing that. Nobody.
Yeah.
And even today, their last couple records, got to tell you, they haven't lost a step. And
when you see Halford live, man, that dude's still got pipes, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he got pipes for days,
Yeah.
Well, he got sober, he got healthy, had surgery on he had a tear in his diaphragm, had a sports hernia, had back issues. Man, you're not going to be 100% when you're, as a
he's
singer,
72 years old.
Yeah, and as a singer, you use all those body parts when you're singing, and once he got fixed, man, he was incredible. I mean,
we've seen that from a lot of bands, though. We saw it from Blaze. He got healthy. His vocals are better than they've ever been. We saw it from Max. I saw Max right before the pandemic. He sounded like shit. He couldn't sing. He was screaming into the mic for the whole show. During the pandemic, he lost weight, started getting into shape, and got his voice back. And the last two times I've seen him, he sounds amazing,
Dude,
let's touch on that with Pantera right now, because a lot of people
sounds amazing.
Okay, but a lot of people are complaining about his vocals, and what they don't understand, is that here's the thing. Okay, I've known Phil since 1987. We're friends. We're good homies. Over the years, as a vocalist and as a human being, your voice is going to change from 1980 to 1990 to 2000 to 10 to 20. All right. Of course, we can't. None of us hit the same notes we hit in those days. That's why when you hear Pantera right now, if you don't understand that they're tuned down a step and a half, you think it's sludgy. You think they're playing it slow. They ain't playing it slow. They ain't playing it sludgy. They're tuned down a step and a half for his voice, because his voice is more of down. He's been doing down now solidly for years.
I don't
and years
think people
and years.
that are seeing him now actually saw him in the 90s, because me and Scott
Oh no,
about this.
No, that's one of the
90s, and he was so fucking wasted. He could barely get through the show.
Yes.
He would sing for a little bit and then put the mic out because he couldn't while he's catching his breath.
Hey,
Pantera wasn't great to see live in the late 90s.
Hey,
you know?
Chaos AD and Sepultura and Pantera. Sepultura smoked them because Phil was drunk, and my friends were so pissed because they didn't know who Sepultura was, and I kept hyping them up before the show.
Well, and it wasn't just Phil; the whole fucking band was drunk.
Yeah,
I mean, the band sounded better than Phil did, but and Scott was like, "Man, that song," and he would go into these long F-word rants over just saying that.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. I saw him with Super Joint Ritual. It was my first time seeing Phil live, and he was so wasted on stage, and his between stage, we laughed because his between song stage banter was like, "You effing effers, you don't know who the F you are. I'm the effing metal god." And it was like every other word was the F word, to the point where he was like following one F word with the other F word. It was, but he was you could tell he was wasted.
Well, there's a lot of issues.
It was definitely comical
too, because like we said of Max and of Rob and of everybody getting their health figured out. That dude toured with a bad back for probably at least 10 years, man. He needed back surgery, but there was no way to stop the beast that was Pantera back then. I mean, we're talking about a band that, 2-3 albums went platinum?
Yeah.
Vulgar came out, or was it Vulgar or Far Beyond came out number 1? I mean, come on, man.
It was Vulgar Display of Power.
Came out number 1 up against Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson and ZZ Top. That right there in itself says it all.
Actually, I think the second and third album came out number 1. They were both huge when they came out. Yeah.
When did you see Superjoint, man? What was this early 90s or was this 2000 Superjoint?
When I saw Superjoint, they were playing one of those big festivals, Ozfest or one of those.
It was the 2000 Superjoint.
Speaking of Hank 3, he was a bass player in Superjoint, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
Yes, on the first album.
First so, John, albums, we have a visitor. It looks like from Russia. Can you read the name?
I cannot. I wonder if that's the guitarist from Hell's Four Horsemen. I used to have a huge connection with those guys, and now there's a ton of like 3-piece power trio stoner rock guys like Weed Pecker and bands like that are really, really cool. And I maintain, but they write in English, so my Russian is terrible, despite the fact that I have great Russian neighbors. But my Russian's that's a whole different. Speak to me in Spanish or French or Italian. I got you, but yeah, Mandarin and Russian are not my thing.
I'm looking forward to that tour next year, though. Metallica, Pantera, and Suicidal. That's going to be a great tour.
Is that
that's taking it back to the 90s. What?
Is that what the package is going to be next year? Because
that's the one here in Atlanta. It's Metallica's a headliner. And then it's Pantera and Suicidal's opening. And I believe, I'm not sure if, what's his name is still playing drums for them.
Is Trujillo play bass in Suicidal, or is his boy playing bass in Suicidal?
No, he hasn't been playing for a while. It's
No, Trujillo is his. I think his son played for a while, didn't he?
That's what I was thinking too.
He was, and then he was touring with Korn for a while, and then I'm not sure who. And I'm not sure who's playing drums for him either.
Because it's not Lombardo anymore.
No, Lombardo's
in the Misfits.
Well, they're only doing I saw him with the Misfits. That was a great.
Oh, I did too on Halloween here in Dallas, bro. It was sold out.
So they played in Florida, and what was really cool was what's the name of the band?
Fear.
Fear opened up.
Yes.
And then Fear went on stage with Megadeth, and they did 2 of the songs from MD45. They had never done songs live from that album before.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was fucking killer. And then the Misfits were, man, that was amazing.
Yeah, they played here in Dallas, Texas on Halloween and played Bullet. And they played Bullet, dude. So
the only thing that was disappointing, I don't know if it was like that in Texas, you can tell Erie wasn't playing guitar. The other guitar player was playing.
Oh, they need to move him a little bit more to the front because without him, there ain't a guitar player.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Who is that? Who is that guy? They have him so in the shadows. They don't even want you to know who the hell he is.
They gave him a shout out when I saw him, but you could tell Erie, he beats the guitar. You can tell when he's playing.
Yeah. And do we know who this other guitar player is on the
list? I looked it up he's in another band.
All right.
I looked it up one time. He's a legit player, but there's a lot of bands doing that now. We were talking about, so I saw Sepultura the current lineup maybe a year and a half ago, and it's just Andreas, playing guitar on stage. But a lot of the early Sepultura stuff, you need the dual guitar, And I looked off the side of the stage, and the guitar tech was playing the rhythm.
Really?
No credit for it, He didn't even pull him out.
I thought Derek played guitar sometimes.
He does?
Well, when I saw him, he didn't play.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, though, the Cavalera brothers doing those reissues those were absolutely scorching. And
dude,
and the live shows they did for him were fantastic.
SoFly on the Boat was fire, dude.
Yeah.
With Mike DeLeon on guitar, and is that his son on drums?
Yeah.
Damn, that dude.
And his son's name is Igor.
He's amazing.
Yeah. Well, what other band was he in? He was in a band that toured with Max for a long time.
Is it every time I die?
Something.
It's in another band with Max where Max just plays guitar and his son sings.
Oh, yeah, that's you almost said it. It's Not Every Time I Die. It's
something like that.
Yes.
I've got the EP.
Go ahead and die.
Go ahead and die. Yeah. And that's really good too.
Yeah, it's heavy. Max can just write riff after riff after riff after
He's
riff.
doing a pretty cool tour. I didn't find out about it till the day after, but he's doing a Max Cavalera tour where he's doing stuff from Sepultura, stuff from Soulfly, stuff from Nailbomb. It's just a couple songs from every band that he's been in throughout the years right now.
That's killer. I want to see that.
We're getting a lot of comments. People are actually having discussion outside of our discussion. People are talking about Ozzy and his vocals and his last best album. And somebody asked about Dio versus Pantera. I love Dio, the band Dio and the vocalist Dio. I think Dio is a totally different style.
I was about to say you can't even compare that because
it's kind of apples and oranges.
You mentioned Pantera dropping down a couple steps because that's actually Max has always been more of a sludgy kind of singer anyway, so that kind of fits into his wheelhouse regardless,
Yeah. A lot of people don't know that about Pantera right now. They don't know that it's tuned down a step and a half from normal tuning of Pantera. That's
my favorite part was watching Zach. So he doesn't like using a wah pedal on stage. So there's video of his guitar tech in the back using the wah pedal while he's playing up on stage. I thought that was pretty funny.
On what song where they have to dun dun?
Yeah.
That's Grady's always done that. Grady did that for Dime too.
Yeah, did he? Yeah.
Yes. So yeah,
that's another guy. Zach turned his life around too. He was drinking. He said he was drinking.
When Dime passed away, and I was over at his house for all of that terrible moment in time, I took Zach to the beer store in my 2004 Chevy 3/4 ton long bed truck, and we filled the back of the truck up with Heineken. So I understand about Zach's drinking problem. That dude could put him away, man. I mean,
it's amazing those guys. I mean, you look at guys like Hank Williams, who was dead at 27.
Yep,
from drinking.
His was a lot of opiates too. That's what got Hank Sr. was the opiates. So. But hey, to each his own, man. Everybody's got a vice of something, dude. Whether it's a Dr. Pepper or whether it's heroin, everybody got some kind of device.
And on that note,
yeah, we need to. We're a few minutes over, so
we usually wind down, but we could probably go for days. So you're going to have to come back now that you're just part of the crew,
right on.
But thanks for doing that. I mean, you. Like I said, I've known Jamie for a long. I've known of Jamie for a long time. But I think being on the boat and being in close quarters and seeing each other in just a completely detached. I mean, it was beautiful being away from TV, internet, and work, and just hanging out and listening to killer tunes, interacting. It was a real friendshiping type cruise. I think it just was. We had an amazing time. We look forward to doing it again. But you get to know somebody on a different level, and I appreciate you, Jamie, confiding in me with your music.
For sure, man.
Because I think, and Scott and I will talk. We had talked about this about what to do with that thing, because we'll put it on YouTube. But I think you should consider something else. But we can talk about it later. But we appreciate you taking some time out for us. And like I said, you probably need to come back, because I know that we that's not even the tip of the iceberg. There's more to what you've done in your life underneath the water there.
For sure, man. For that Jimmy Big Time 2040 up the chute, you know, I try to keep that dime bag stuff alive too. If you guys ever want to see something funny, man, just go check out my Facebook and put in there Jimmy Big Time 2040 up the chute. If you remember on Pantera 1 when Dime did up the chute 2040, you guys remember that?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to carry on the passion that Dime had for being a jokester, man. You know, because you always got to make fun. You got to make fun of the stuff you can't make fun of, even when you can. So
one of my first interactions when I moved to Dallas after just a really poor situation, divorce, whatever, sold my business. One of my first interactions was with Dimebag through a guy named Mike Chandler. Do you remember him over at the Rock Stop?
I remember the place. I don't remember the name so much.
Anyway, he said, "Hey, John, I got this friend of mine. I understand you got a bunch of Kiss stuff." And I said, "Yeah." And Mike says, "Well, I'm going to bring a friend by." And guess who he brought by? It was
Don.
Probably the biggest Kiss collector on the planet at the time.
For sure he was, man.
And we could go on and on about that. But so anyway, well, appreciate you once again.
Oh, yeah, man. Thanks,
like
guys, for having me.
And
yes.
we've been honored to have you just come on and just hit the bricks with us talking about music. This is what it's all about. Like I said, we don't have anything really very rarely do we have anything structured or planned, because we just kind of shoot from the hip, and I think that's usually when you get the best radio, man. Yeah,
you know,
I think you're right about that. But in closing, Scott, you got anything?
No. Just let everybody know about where we can find everybody at. Where can we find you at?
Jamie, yeah, what's
Jamie?
your
man? I mean, I guess on Facebook it's under Jamie Moore. And
Okay.
other than that, I'm Instagram is 2040 up the chute Jimmy Big Time, and on Facebook I got Jimmy Big Time 2040 up the chute, so you can find me on both of those. I just kind of I don't really lay low, man. I'm not a real high tech redneck kind of guy. I had to find this email in the trash thing, man. So you're lucky I could manage that. I was up to. I don't know if you noticed, I didn't join in until 4:58. I kept hitting the button on my phone like, where's this email? Where's this email?
He sent it to me. He's like, no email yet. I'm like, no, I'm sure he sent it.
And I was like, you know what, dummy, maybe you ought to check that junk box, and because I haven't probably looked in that in a minute. So yeah, I went and there it was. So that's why I joined right at the last minute. So yeah. Right. But me and John we've been talking about some stuff. There he went. And but he's gonna try to help me out and get some stuff set up for me so that some of my music can get put out on platforms, because like that Irreverance CD, a lot of people don't even know that exists, man, because that was late 90s when there wasn't YouTube and there wasn't internet radio, there wasn't this and that. If you didn't have a physical copy in your hand, you didn't get to hear it.
Well,
so
maybe we can talk about a reissue of it in the future on CD or something like that.
Right on.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll definitely get with you and John on that. But you can find John on Instagram at Carcass John Art. You can find Rob. Where's Rob? I don't know where he is. There he is. You can find Rob, who's not here today, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at Metal Rob's Records. You can find Steve at Harmless Rebel 868 on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram at No Lights Metal, or YouTube at No Lights Metal, or Scott Waters. And as we usually do on every single show, how we exit off is we say metal will prevail, or metal shall prevail. And let's go ahead and get into it. Ready? Metal will prevail.
Metal
will prevail.
There you go.
Burn that guy down.
And then I leave you all hanging while I try to find the ending.